Hi, my name is Alyssa Smith,
And I'm Mariah Sherman.
and we are going to talk about the motor development of hula hooping. So some infantile reflexes that are incredibly important to be proficient in adulthood for hula hooping include stepping, symmetrical tonic neck, crawling, labyrinthine righting, derivative righting, and parachute, making sure to point out that we're going to be tilting the baby in all positions or in all directions to help maintain upright stabilization when hula hooping.
So first we have labyrinthine righting. This one is important for head stabilization. This allows us to keep better balance. Next we have stepping, locomotive reflex. So you have Alyssa showing us here. This is important for locomotion, staying upright during hula hooping. And lastly, parachute is important for using the limbs for stabilization.
Some infantile constraints include, for functional, it's motivation, attention span, and mental capacity for motor planning and development. And when you're an infant, you're not probably going to be interested at all in the hula hoop unless you're trying to mouth it or teeth it, as seen on the right. And then for structural, it comes down to size, muscle development and strength, and brain development and size. And because of this, as an infant, you're probably not able to even hold your head up, so at that point you can't use your hips or be able to stand upright to use the hula hoop properly. Some environmental constraints include the size of the area to move around for gross motor development, how much tummy time you're given, access to caretakers who can assess proper development and gross motor development, and then lots of access to toys and play so that the baby can be used to trying new and novel items. And then some task constraints include the size of the hula hoop that you are using. If you're a baby, it probably doesn't matter because they just want to put it in their mouth. And then the body part you are trying to use with the hula hoop.
So your coordination during childhood is mostly spastic and unorganized. You're trying to learn how to coordinate upper and lower body at this point in your life. So circumduction is not the easiest task, but that's the movement pattern that you're trying to perform. So you have lateral and front and backwards foot movement, balance strategies. You must be able to do balancing acts, and you're constantly changing your angle of the hips, knees, and ankles to keep the hoop up on your hips. Most adjustments are going to be spastic and quick because the child is learning how to properly balance and keep the hoop upright.
Some childhood constraints include the attention span, the ability to listen to instructions, internal motivation to be successful or to improve skills. At this point, you're probably not going to be incredibly interested or motivated to do it unless your friends are doing it or you have access to it during recess. For structure, it's still down to size, your musculoskeletal development, your coordination of your hips, your knees, and your ankles. At this stage of development, especially because the body is growing so fast, you might not be able to coordinate your hips with the movement of the hoop. Some environmental constraints include whether or not you're practicing inside versus outside. People might have better skill development if they're outside and have more movement or more area to move around, as well as how much time is given by parents for exploration and practice. If you have access to a hula hoop in the first place is the most important piece to actually start practicing. And then access to information on skill improvement. So if someone doesn't know how to tell you how to improve your hula hooping, you're probably going to stay at the same stage. And then whether or not you have peer access for play. Again, if your friends aren't doing it, you're probably not very inclined to do it yourself. And since some task constraints grow to being time allotted to hula hoop, usually recess is going to be this time. And so if you only have 20 minutes to practice, you only have 20 minutes to practice. The size of the hula hoop, the weight of it, and then if there are any rules or competitions or games that you're actually using the hula hoop for.
This is a task that is generally gender stereotyped to females as well, so you'll see less males practicing this.
So body scaling is incredibly important for hula hooping. As you can see on the right, there are two different sizes that Mariah is holding, but if you were to go to Walmart, you're going to see a massive variation in size, and that is because it's depending on how tall you are and how big you are and width. Choosing the right size hula hoop is incredibly important. You're going to have more exaggerated movements with a larger hoop, and so that's going to actually result in slower hip movements. And smaller scaled hoops are usually for younger kids, and they can coordinate that better than if it was a larger hoop. And then one big thing is sand within the hoop can play a huge role on how easily the hoop spins itself. Just some simple physics when it comes to hula hooping. Torque is the force that's actually being created or generated, and the amount of sand will change the amount of torque that needs to be generated in order to put the hoop around your body. So the heavier the hoop is, the more force you have to generate to keep it going upwards, because gravity is going to be fighting it. And then frictional force is also a huge component too. So the heavier it is, the more friction there's going to be. And so it might be easier if you have a heavier hoop, because you have to have slower hip movements, because it's going to take a slower amount of time for the hoop to go around your body.
We have two video examples here. The first is a video example of an adorable young girl trying to hula hoop with her mom recording.
Go ahead.
Seems to be functional capability lacking here.
You can try it again.
And then you can see an equally as adorable human being also trying to mimic what a child would look like if they were hula hooping.
And for your enjoyment, we have a little boy who's very proficient in hula hooping for some reason. He must have been practicing a lot. He's able to show here that he's able to multitask pretty well. His dad tells him instructions to raise his hands, put his hands in front.
Do I count when I do it?
So for adolescence and preteen coordination, it's important to note that most kids might end at this stage unless they move into more hula hoop dancing or more elaborate movements that they might want to try when they're older. But coordination usually includes improving the fluidity in hip movements with the hoop, being able to feel that anterior and posterior iliac spine in coordination with hip and hoop movements. That's usually the point that you can feel when the hip or when the hoop touches your body. And then learning to make smaller knee and ankle adjustments. As people improve in their skill, you tend to see them not move their lower body as much, especially if the hoop goes up or down, too high or too low. And then having a better understanding of the movement needed to be successful, there's slower circumduction in the body. And then their angle, they're going to be more upright with less lateral movement than in childhood. There's smaller and more fluid adjustments, but they're going to be more relaxed and making sure they have the correct size hoop at this point.
Usually this is the age that most people are at their maximum ability. So functional is willingness to do it. So once you master it, do you want to continue to practice? This is the age group where typically females will continue to practice hooping, but in coordination with dance. Structurally, your body is changing, so your hip size is changing and your muscle and coordination is changing, which allows people to continue to improve in the dance form of hula hooping. Environmentally, the social pressures are high to quit doing a task that is known for younger kids. And again, the task is changing. The rules of the environment are changing. So we have two examples of what adolescents might be doing. They're learning how to move beyond just hula hooping because they've mastered that. So they may, as you see on the right here, they may go about, goodness gracious, they may go about changing up their movement patterns. So the boy on the left is able to go about with one foot and try and challenge himself to do new tasks. And then the girl on the right gives you a good example of somebody who is about as proficient as they can be.
So for adult coordination, at this point, the flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction, as well as just general gyration, are completely necessary. Older adults, though, tend to struggle with all of these, especially as the body tends to degenerate. And then the body angle, there aren't many changes from adolescence depending on the skill level, but some adults may regress to earlier stages if it has been a while. And then for posture, they tend to stay upright with minimal sway.
Those constraints are mostly structural, meaning that you increase your body fat and your physical fitness decreases. And again, less access to hoops because you tend to not have them as adults. We have an example of me doing it on the left. And then we have an example of this being used in therapy.
Adult services. I love sharing hula hooping with people. It has got so many benefits for your physical and mental well-being. It's a fantastic cardio workout. It improves your posture, flexibility, balance, muscle tone and strength. And it's so much fun. You get to work.
Okay, and then lastly, we have some examples of us trying to do our best hula hooping. Some of us are more capable than others. Thanks for watching. Hope you had fun learning about hula hooping.